Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast, celebrating filmmaking, storytelling and cinema across the island of Ireland. In today's episode, we're really delighted to celebrate two great films. In a little while, contributor Hayley Jorja chats with IFTA-nominated filmmaker Nathan Fagan about his short animated documentary Inside the Valley Sings, which is qualified for the 98th Academy Awards. But first, here's Mo O'Connell, who catches up with actor Carolyn Bracken about their wonderful feature Horseshoe, which is released in cinemas on the 5th of December. Mo is an accomplished actor herself and producer on the award-winning family dramedy. So have a listen to the trailer here.
We're all here for the last will and testament of Colin Canavan. I was sorry for your loss.
He was a terrible.
It is my wish that my children all should have claim and rights to an equal share of my earthly possessions and properties.
Hands up, who wants to sell?
I'm not selling. Seeing as we're all here for the weekend, we might as well try and make the most of it.
And what, behave like a normal family?
I'm just trying to keep our family together.
I've no interest in a building of bad memories.
This place is my home.
I wish it was a mole in the ground.
None of this is your fault.
And all I ever wanted was to have you around.
Either you want to be a part of a family or you don't.
If I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole in the ground. If I was a mole, I'd tear that mountain down. If I was a mole in the ground.
And I've never found anywhere else that felt like home. And this place does.
You want to explain this? It's really nice being back together as a family again, isn't it?
Should I make some tea?
Hey, so we have Carolyn Bracken here with us today for Film Ireland. Thank you so much for joining me, Carolyn. It's like a privilege to be chatting to you.
Oh God, no, the privilege is mine. Thank you for having me.
So you had your Horseshoe premiere last night. How did you feel watching yourself on the big screen in the Savoy in O'Connell Street?
As on the whole, it was really lovely seeing the movie up there. I think it's about the 5th or 6th time I've seen it. So I think in terms of watching myself up on the screen, I'm over it at this stage. But on the whole, just watching it as a complete finished work, it's always gorgeous because you just remember how we got there and how we actually managed and how everybody managed to pull it off. And there it is on the big screen. So it's lovely.
And do you want to talk about just how you kind of got there, I suppose, with the guys and how you got to know them and other work you've done before with them?
Yeah, so a good few years ago, I think it was 2016, 2017, myself and another actor were looking for a director for a play that we were going to be putting on in Smock Alley, Eden by Eugene O'Brien. And just a friend of a friend recommended Jed Murray, who plays Jer in Horseshoe. And that's how I kind of was ingratiated into the core ensemble then, because we worked together on that. And luckily enough, we just hit it off and got along really well. So he asked if I'd be interested in joining their theatre company, the core ensemble. So I kind of came on in kind of 2017, I think, after that play. And that's where I met Mary Murray and Sean and Eric and Neil and all the crew of the core ensemble, and then and Ed, of course, as well, and Hillary. I kind of went from there, just doing theatre together and workshops and short films and all of that kind of stuff. So we've been kind of a little family, and I was very lucky to have been welcomed into the fold. Yeah, back, God, nearly 8 or 9 years ago now at this stage. That's kind of how it started,
Okay. So that's where the chemistry comes from, because the chemistry between the actors and Horseshoe was like, I mean, you were all so relaxed with each other that you could play with each other. And there was such a strong connection, like it felt like a natural family.
Yeah, I think I don't know if we even realized it at the time. Like maybe I didn't realize it at the time, just how lucky we were of how well we knew each other. Because most of us had all worked together before. I think the only person who I hadn't worked with on stage or in a short film was Eric. And that was it. And sure, it was so easy with him. He's so brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe I didn't realize it or appreciate it as much as the time. But when I see the chemistry between us up on the screen, we were very lucky, because it was just there. We didn't have to add another layer in terms of performing to get that. It just was organic at that stage. So yeah, we were very lucky with that.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you started acting? Like where, like did you train? Or did you do a play in secondary school and then, you just really liked it and kept going or
Yeah, no, I started like my mom was great. I'm one of four girls, and she was very good at just throwing us into anything when we were young and just kind of seeing what we liked. And all of us just went into what we were put into a local drama group here called the Nina Players, and we all just took to it. We all loved it. And she was great. She really nurtured us and ended up getting very involved herself in that particular drama group. She became the chairperson so we could, you know, perform, and spent a lot of years in amateur theatre doing the amateur circuit, the festival runs, and going around the country and performing different plays and all that kind of stuff. So to me, it's kind of it feels like it's in the bones. I don't really remember life without it. And then once I kind of got to leaving cert year, sure, listen, life happens, things happen, and I kind of went off the walls for a while, and kind of left it for a little bit, and then kind of told myself to cop on in my kind of late 20s, early 30s. So I went back and um, went to the Gaiety, do part time. I had two kids at this stage, so kind of had to figure it out around rearing them.
Hmm.
So went back and did a part-time course in the Gaiety for a year, did a couple of screen acting courses, workshops, bits and pieces, and just started working and trying to get everything I could get my hands on. So it kind of started from, yeah, a young age, then a little dip out and then back in.
Okay. And what do you feel you get from acting as an artist? Like what is it?
God, what do I get from it? Nothing, obviously. Um, Yeah, there's part of me that knows on some level that when I was younger and on stage and then people telling me I was good, I'd say
Mm,
that kind of leans into it a little bit, to the owl ego, and just going, oh, this is what I'm good at. Okay, I'll just do this. But listen, there's an opportunity for kind of, I don't know, I there's a connection with the self. There's a truth to it. There's a freedom, in the confines of a script and a character, which I don't have the intelligence to be able to articulate properly. But there's something very liberating, and there's an awful lot of freedom in being able to step into the world of somebody else, and just be them for a little while. Yeah, I haven't really found the words to articulate it, but yeah, I adore it. It provides something that nothing else has, you know?
Well, that's what I see when you act is there's a kind of flow that happens. It's like, you turn on a tap and there's this lovely energetic flow. I mean, I don't know how else to describe myself either, but and it's lovely to watch. And I think your breathing even changes, everything changes. It's really interesting. But I'd say you must get kind of a high out of that in a way, because I suppose maybe in a way with acting, it's kind of like you're strangely in a way being your kind of truest self in a way through someone else. You're able to expose that to a certain degree, and it kind of puts you in a, I don't know, a type of flow where you're able to just, let your energy.
Mm.
Whereas in real life, we kind of stop that a wee bit and kind of,
Yeah, you have to behave yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? I don't know a huge, like, there in terms of formal training and knowing about all the disciplines of performance and all of that kind of stuff. I'd have a very rudimental knowledge about it. And I know that I think there are probably actors out there who can very easily separate themselves from the characters they play. I don't think I can. I don't know whether I have the ability or capability or discipline to be able to do that. So I suppose, um,
Well, I think you're very different from, from character to character, but I suppose the strange and ironic thing about acting is that even though you're being someone completely different, in a way, at the very core of it, it's self-expression. So it's you in a way, kind of expressing yourself through your imaginary idea of who these people are in a way, if you know what I mean. But it's still
Yeah.
like every actor is still themselves, regardless.
Yeah, I suppose because like we all live on a spectrum of the same feelings, really. Do you know what I mean? The circumstances might be different. You know what I mean? We mightn't have experienced the same thing that a character that we're playing had, but we know the feelings around it. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like the spectrum only goes from one end to the next. You know, it goes from one part to the next to the other. So within that, we all have the capability of accessing those feelings. Be the circumstances different with the character. Do you know what I mean? So you just kind of look, from your own stuff maybe, and then just apply it to that. I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of a lifelong kind of a lifelong lesson, you know. Always learning, always picking up new things.
Mm. And do you find acting for theatre like really different to acting for the camera, or how do you find it?
Yeah, I do. In what way though? I suppose it is a different beast. There's something electric about knowing you're about to step on stage and that's it for the next 90 minutes or 2 hours. You know what I mean? That's the world that you're entering into and you're not going to be able to come out of it. And there's something so enthralling and invigorating about that just before you step on, where you think you're about to die. And then you go on and you just get to live and breathe. Another world, another story. For a while, whereas with screen, you step in, you step out, you step in, you step out. When it comes to takes and stuff, I think the screen acting is possibly a little bit more internal. Less is more. But each both theater and screen, I absolutely adore, but just in different ways, I guess.
Okay. And just for people watching who might be starting out or that type of thing, have you ever like dealt with like a really bad bout of nerves, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, like, do you know what? I used to, when I was doing amateur theater, the nerves were always quite manageable. There was that feeling of just before going on where you would just rather be anywhere else. And then you go out and you perform and you're like, well, that was the most intense, extreme, exhilarating experience of my life. And I can't wait to do it tomorrow. And then you go on tomorrow and then you're shitting it again. But yeah, like there was a little bout of stage fright there a few years ago, with a production that got quite intense. And to be honest with you, I don't currently have an answer to that, because I'm still in the process of trying to figure that out myself. So if anybody has any tips, get in touch. I wish I had an answer, and I know that there's an answer there, and I know that it's a very common thing for theater actors to experience. But I'd be dishonest if I was to say, here's what you do, because it's a new phenomenon to me, that only started happening in the last number of years, and I'm still figuring it out, to be entirely honest. Yeah.
And I suppose we'll just talk a little bit about the character Cass in Horseshoe. So, but, like, what did you like about Cass? What did you relish about playing her? And what did you not like, maybe even?
What did I like about her? Every time I'm asked about character after I played someone, I'm like, what? And
Yeah.
trying to get back into them again. Who are they? Well, you know what I mean? She was an accomplished woman. She was, strong. I think that she did what she could to make the best of her upbringing, in terms of not wanting to repeat the same mistakes with her children, but, perhaps choosing somebody too like her dad. So it was nearly a self-fulfilling prophecy. But no, just I think, with Cass, her world was her kids, and she was going to do anything that she needed to do to protect them. And uh, yeah, I don't know, really know. Like after stepping out of her for so long, it's kind of hard to describe her. Um,
That's interesting, even though, that you kind of let them go in a way and, they kind of
yeah, for
rebirth.
some reason, it happens every time, Mo. If I'm doing any, getting asked any questions, somebody goes, "Tell me about the character." I'm like, "Uh,
I don't know.
sometimes I can barely remember their name. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know why it is. Maybe it is a case where once they've been lived, then they're gone.
they're gone.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's kind of open to anybody else then. It's open to whoever's watching it to draw their own conclusions about who she is and what she's like and stuff like that. It's nearly not up to me anymore. And I just forget.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely relate to that as well. Like I
Do
find it,
you?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I
Oh,
find
cool.
it difficult as well. Because it's quite abstract acting in a way, like you're there and you're doing it and like you're figuring it out as you go along as well. Like you never necessarily know beforehand who the character is until you actually start doing it as well, you know.
Yeah.
But when you've done it, you can like, was that okay? It's like, and then you
Was
have to
that
suddenly describe it, and it's like, oh Jesus, it's really
I
hard.
know. Yeah, yeah, it can be a little bit of a challenge. And you're right, like, do you know what I mean? Sometimes part of them come out on the day that you didn't realize were there. They come out
Yeah,
and you go, "Oh God, that lands." So actually describing them, it's nearly up to whoever's watching it at this stage. Do you know what I mean? So I think everybody's perspective might be a little different depending on where they're at in their lives of how they perceive a person.
yeah,
So yeah, it's kind of a letting go of that and just she's gonna be whoever is watching it
yeah. Whoever
as
comes.
her be, you know? Yeah. But she's tough, tough, you know what I mean? Tough, armored, you know,
Hmm.
after years of it. And then, like most of us, when we go back to our hometown or place where we don't want to be, we regress back into a child.
Yeah.
So there's an element of that as well, you know?
And I suppose just last questions. So what's coming up for you?
There is an Italian movie that I was part of last year, and that called Beasts of Prey, which I think in the Italian will be it's called Farine, which means feral, and that will be starting its festival run fairly soon.
Ooh,
So in terms of theatrical release, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think they're going to be starting the festival run of that pretty soon. Another genre film, another complex lady character.
grand.
Um, and then a gorgeous feature documentary by Cara Holmes. I'm not sure. Are you
Brilliant.
familiar with
She's
Cara?
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She has written a docu feature called Lesbian Lines, which centers around an underground helpline that was founded in I think it was the mid to late 70s in Ireland for gay women,
Mhm.
you know, and centers around a lot of the OG members, and then there are kind of reconstructions told of some of their stories and some of their experiences with callers that are performed by actors. So yeah, I think she's nearly finished that. That's with Keeper Films, so I think that'll be starting its festival run soon.
Right.
So yeah, to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. They sound amazing. Looking.
Yeah, yeah, looking forward to seeing Lesbian Lines now. That I
Mm,
it seemed very special. It seems like it's going to be a very special one. Yeah.
yes. So thank you so much, Carolyn, for joining us today. That was just brilliantly insightful. So thank you so much. And sure, we'll be seeing you on the screens very soon. December 5th, Horseshoe, all over Ireland. So yay.
December 5th. Support local independent cinema, please. Support Irish cinema.
Yes.
Yeah, it was lovely talking to you, Mo. Thank you so much.
Thanks a million.
Thanks so much for chatting with us, Mo and Carolyn. So now Hayley Jorja catches up with Nathan Fagan about Inside the Valley Sings, which won Best Animated Short Film Award at the Dublin International Film Festival. Trapped in a never-ending horror of prolonged solitary confinement, 3 prisoners seek comfort and escape the boundless vistas of their own imaginations.
The first thing I want to ask you, so like looking at your filmography, this is your first time getting into like straightforward documentary and animation, it seems like. So what kind of made you want to branch out and try new mediums, or what made you drawn to trying this story out?
Definitely my first time to animation. Yeah, I've made a few docs over the years actually. So I've always sort of jumped between fiction and fiction, but yeah, like animation. Yeah, it was definitely I definitely was kind of naive coming into animation. I didn't really know a huge about how it's actually made, so it was definitely a huge learning curve. But yeah, with this particular project, I suppose that I kind of chose to work with an animator, that I worked with this incredible animator called Natasha Setner. Yeah, the reason was, I suppose, with this particular story, because so much of kind of the film is about what happens in the inner lives of the 3 subjects, Kiana, Sunny, and Frank. I just kind of felt like, I suppose I had a couple of options. One option would have been take a kind of slightly maybe kind of impressionistic approach to recreations, which I've done in some previous projects before, with live action. But yeah, just I suppose I kind of realized that like animation kind of affords these very unique opportunities. So yeah, kind of quickly I kind of quickly realized that yeah, animation probably was the only real way to kind of capture what I wanted to capture. So yeah, and then once I decided that, I had a very serious kind of realization quickly that it's very difficult and time consuming, it turns out. So yeah.
I can imagine, yeah. And I think you do like such a good job like of bringing like the feeling of like solitary confinement into the documentary. I think the animation works really well. So like you're saying like it's your first time working with animators, but what was the like collaborative process like that? Like I think the style of the film really kind of brings the story of it to life. So, like, is the style something you always had in mind, or is that something you developed with Natasha?
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, I got like really happy to get the opportunity to work with this incredible animator, Natasha Setner, she's made such incredible work kind of up to now. Yeah, the style definitely evolved like between the two of us. I think, yeah, like obviously, there was a whole, it's a kind of a like the yeah, it's a different workflow, although in a funny way, the visual language, it's not a million miles away from cinematic visual language, so it wasn't like I was coming at it completely, raw, but yeah, but obviously there's very different kind of approaches. So yeah, I think like the style kind of emerged out of conversations with Natasha. I think a lot of conversations just around intention, really, like what we were trying to kind of communicate with the film. And so one thing we kind of really, we both felt strongly about, but I, kind of felt definitely quite strongly about was that we wanted to like not we wanted to find a way to sort of capture the stark reality of solitary confinement first, so that was always in the audience's mind, and then when we did go into the kind of imaginative world, that would have a different kind of style, and obviously because it's the imagination. But I think it was really important that we kind of chose a style that kind of captured, I suppose, the kind of the tedium and boredom and kind of yeah, like just the kind of sensory deprivation of being in a 6 by 9 cell, Yeah, so obviously the kind of one style in the film is this quite stripped down, almost kind of illustrative style with just that pop of color from the prison jumpsuits, which was I thought that was Natasha's innovation, which I thought was really great actually. And yeah, so and then the more imaginative styles. Yeah, Natasha kind of played around with like a few different techniques there. Some of it's kind of paint style. There's actually different kind of styles from each different character, which is really interesting as well. So yeah, I kind of evolved just through a lot of conversations, and then Natasha would go off and kind of do sort of sample art, and we'd kind of work on it together like that. So, and then yeah, a lot of I suppose what you see is. Yeah, it was kind of motivated by what's in the actual audio interviews, what the story was kind of depicting. So at times we go abstract, but I think there's times where we wanted to kind of show, yeah, in an almost documentary way, the reality of kind of what people are describing.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting, and it's nice that you say like the art style is different, because I do think you get a real sense of each person's like personality through like what like their inner world becomes in it. I think like you
Yeah,
get a really sense of like who these people are and these snippets of like how what they explore when they have nothing outside of them.
yeah.
What kind of sparked your interest in the solitary confinement in the US to begin with?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's not like I think it kind of started a really long time ago where I happened across an essay by a guy, I think his name was William Blake, funny enough, but a guy who he was currently in solitary confinement in a US prison. I think he's done some kind of astronomical sentence where he's 30 years in solitary, but I just happened across this essay many years ago, where he described kind of the psychological kind of consequences of prolonged isolation. Obviously, a lot of it's incredibly, dark, and it's kind of torturous to be isolated that long. But also what he talked about in connection to that was kind of the way it sort of changes your relationship to time, and it changes your relationship to your kind of like inner world. So this has been something that just had been kind of in my mind for years after reading that essay, and I'd never really done anything about it. But I suppose reading the essay as well, probably like a lot of people, it kind of changed. Yeah, it was a real kind of like insight into like, oh yeah, right. So solitary confinement is this, it's not what we kind of imagine it is. It's much more kind of yeah, I guess much more kind of psychologically challenging and psychologically kind of like destructive form of incarceration. So yeah, and then I didn't do anything with that. I suppose it was just something that I'd come across and it had always been in my mind. And then during COVID, yeah, kind of had a bit more time like everybody else. So I had a bit of time off other projects. So yeah, I just kind of came back to the idea and I wondered if there was anything there. And then yeah, so
You experienced a bit of isolation yourself, and you were like, "Oh God, imagine."
yeah, it wasn't actually that. It's funny, a few people have mentioned that, but I was like, yeah, it's not comparable. I wouldn't try to compare it.
No, no, yeah. And I think you're right that people have like this. I think everybody's heard of it, but I think not as many people actually understand what it does to people, or like what it would actually be like
Yeah.
to talk to nobody and like have nothing but four walls. And I think you just illustrate like the feeling of like claustrophobia and just like complete sensory deprivation super well. How did you meet, or how did you come into contact with your subjects?
Yeah, so yeah, again, it's funny. So I'd spoken to a couple of times over the years, Sunny Jacobs. So she would have been the first person I spoke to. I think, yeah, it's funny. I think I'd actually spoken to her many times. We kind of had like quite a few phone calls and chats over the years. Yeah, I'd always really been fascinated by Sunny's story, which has been explored before actually in a lot of different ways. She's obviously, yeah, she had this, yeah, like kind of quite a, yeah, there's a whole other story there. She'd obviously was wrongfully convicted and put on death row in Florida in the 19, I actually can't really remember, the 70s maybe. She was, I suppose, like I knew that she had spent time in solitary confinement. So when I started to think about this project, she was the first person I spoke to. And we just kind of had conversations about it. And yeah, it's kind of, I suppose, the kind of idea of what I would focus on started to form. And then, yeah, from there, I started reaching out to different nonprofits who are fighting to kind of abolish solitary confinement in the US. And I didn't actually specifically focus on the US originally. I was quite, it was a pretty broad net I cast, but yeah, it's just for whatever reason, I think a lot of the people I ended up speaking to were based in the US. I mean, it is it's much more prevalent in the US prison system for whatever reason. It's obviously practiced in different parts of the world, all around the world, but it's definitely, I think there's a lot of attention on it in the US for various reasons. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And I spoke to quite a few different people, but then yeah, some kind of weren't necessarily, it was just sort of more research conversations. Not everyone was necessarily kind of wanted to kind of focus on their personal stories. So yeah, it took me quite a long time. I think it took probably about a year and a half before I kind of found the three people that I wanted to talk to. So yeah, actually, so the second person was Kiana Calloway, who is one of the people in the film, and then The final person, actually, funny enough, was Frank De Palma, who I kind of already at that point, I was really kind of confident in what I had that could tell this story and explore the issues. But Frank was kind of the last piece of the puzzle. But then his story was just actually so kind of so unusual, actually, to from anyone else that I had spoken to. So when I found Frank, it was kind of, yeah, I felt like I was pretty close to having like enough people to interview to make the film.
No, they're great. Their stories are like amazing. I think what you say about like how you just kind of ended up finding three people from the States. I think obviously their prison system is notoriously unusually prevalent, and I think like just the pure length of time all of them spent in solitary, I think that's like unimaginable, like decades. Which I think like even the most countries that do practice it, like it's like days or weeks. People are looking at years. I think like you can get some while they tell their story very like clearly and very well, and it's very well narratively told. I think it's a very difficult topic, and I can't imagine like interviewing somebody and like knowing that they're talking about such like painful or like such difficult times. What was it like building up the rapport with your subjects? Because you interviewed them over 2 years, was it?
Yeah, I mean, so the two, yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, the 2 years was, I suppose, the length of time it took to kind of, yeah, sort of collect all the interviews. We didn't have, it wasn't, we were chatting over 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, but no, it was over a long period of time. And I think, yeah, like I suppose, I mean, I think like every documentary project I've done, if it's about a personal story or a person's story, I'm always just, yeah, I think a big thing is just being really like upfront about what your intentions for the film are and having like a really honest conversation. And I think that's usually that kind of the first starting point. But with this film in particular, I just think, yeah, I kind of felt like it was really important that they understood that they had ownership over the story as well, or over the film and the stories they're being told, because yeah, these ultimately are their stories. And, so I kind of sort of all through the process, it was more of a collaboration. Yeah, I would share once we actually recorded the interviews after like quite a lot of long conversations. I shared various kind of cuts of the audio before we animated anything with them. And then when we actually started to kind of animate it, we would share the kind of works in progress. And I just think for some reason with this story in particular, it felt like that was the best approach because, or probably yeah, it just felt right because, yeah, as I say, I think like they're extremely difficult experiences that they went through, and it's their personal stories. And I think as well, all three of like Sonny, Kiana, and Frank, they really just want to share their stories for other people. You know what I mean? In order to kind of like spark conversation and hopefully kind of instigate change, but also, I suppose they're kind of essentially they're the voice for all the people who are still in solitary confinement who don't get opportunities to tell their stories, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's kind of how, yeah, it kind of, I suppose it was organic. It kind of evolved organically in the sense that I didn't have yeah, I don't always go in with like some strict strategy. I'm just kind of trying to be really honest and open about what I'm intending and then keep people really, yeah, as kind of, involved as possible. I think it's kind of more that feels like a fair kind of way of approaching documentary to me, and just maybe because of the types of ones that I make. But so yeah.
No, yeah, especially because like I think it's really important to be open and open to collaboration in with such like personal and difficult stories. You said you reached out to nonprofits and stuff. Were they involved just with you kind of the pre-production side of it? Like you were just trying to get like talking to people and like learning more about it, or were they involved in the actual like production part?
Yeah, no, I spoke to a few kind of amazing nonprofits in the US, mostly when I was just trying to find survivors to talk to, survivors of solitary confinement. So yeah, that was a really good first kind of yeah, first step really to kind of finding people to speak to. And I think also just again, I suppose because of the nature of these stories, it kind of felt right to sort of start with an organization and let them decide whether or not, there was someone like let them be kind of the point of contact in the beginning rather than directly reaching out to people. Yeah, that was really only it was only kind of in that initial research stage, but Since then, actually, we've kind of got on our website, and I've also kind of we're sort of partnered essentially with Unlock the Box, which is this incredible campaign in the US, which is fighting to kind of abolish solitary confinement in the US. And they've kind of come on now late, but as in, I suppose the kind of well, yeah, we kind of allowed on the website and through our film, we kind of want to allow people to, if they want to kind of do something about it and find out more about solitary confinement, they can visit kind of Unlock the Box and join their kind of national campaign in the US. So yeah, it's been cool.
No, that's great, and it's great like to have that extra bit of life, that it's connecting people to these nonprofits.
Yeah.
And in the stage of like collaborating with the interviewees, did you find like how was it like sharing like drafts of like the animation and the interviews? Like, do you think that helped shape the story more authentically?
Yeah, funny enough, like actually there was no notes actually at all really, which was good. I mean, it was good on one level, I suppose it was good for there was one or two times where we realized that it was like actually that's those dates might be off. So it was kind of good fact checking and which was good. But no, I suppose my intention with sharing them was just I wanted to make sure that, the way we'd kind of assembled, I'd assembled the audio was kind of representative of their stories and they felt like it was representing, their stories in the way that they wanted them to be presented to people. But yeah, ultimately, fortunately, and maybe kind of surprising, they actually had no editorial input, like feedback in the end. It was just enthusiastic and positive from the get-go. So really great. Yeah, I know some people, documentary filmmakers you're actually, yeah, some people don't like, I remember talking to a documentary filmmaker who said not to do that, to never give kind of like, cuts as you go, only kind of let them see it near the end, let your subjects. But I just, for this project, that just didn't feel right, you know what I mean? So, and I understand the issues with that, but I think in this context, it actually made the most sense. Yeah, I don't think there was no sort of shaping it to fit an agenda, you know what I mean?
And I think like considering, as you said, you didn't get any notes, it's obviously you did the right thing for the interviewees that you had. I think like it's gonna be a different process depending on who you're working with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's different films, different approaches, I suppose.
And in your director's statement, you kind of talked about how like you've seen other stories talk about solitary confinement, but you haven't seen as many focus on like the inner lives or like the kind of where people's imaginations go to help them like survive. I'd love to hear more about that or more about like developing that idea.
I think that's kind of probably what drew me to it initially. So obviously the film in a way it is exploring, and I hope this is what's landing with people. It is exploring kind of, what is essentially a huge human rights issue. But also I do think it works on another level where it's also an exploration of kind of, yeah, the human capacity to survive through the imagination. So I think that's kind of it was definitely one of the kind of like a big draw for me initially. I was just sort of thinking about like, okay, wow, yeah, if you're to kind of put people in these really kind of sensory deprived little spaces for huge amounts of time, like what's going to happen? What does that do to a person's sense of self and person's sense of kind of reality and your fantasy life? So yeah, I did kind of go into the project sort of hoping that's what I would find, and I wasn't sure if I was going to find it. But yeah, then when I had some initial conversations with Sunny Jacobs, actually, she actually had a lot to say in that, and she was one of the people that kind of really kind of yeah made me realize that actually is a huge part of it. And actually, it's a kind of I think it's ultimately what allowed those people, like those three people, to survive the situation. Because I think the really sad reality, and all three subjects told me this, is that like, there's a lot of people just don't survive solitary confinement. There's a huge amount of self-harm. Suicide is quite high in certain prisons, according to some of the people in the film. And also, I mean, I think a lot of people just experience psychosis at a certain point. So yeah, the more conversations I had with Frank, Sonny, and Kiana, I kind of yeah, it's kind of like it sort of started to deepen, and I kind of realized as well, which was really amazing, as they started to talk about, yeah, like the role of the imagination. It was kind of like they actually, it wasn't just like, people's fantasy lives as in their hopes and dreams and maybe thoughts of the future. It was kind of like in Frank's case, for example, like he was actually living an alternative life, you know what I mean? And I do think that that's the only way you could survive, 20 plus years in a tiny cell, like, you know what I mean? So I think with the film, which I hope is kind of conveyed, is that like there's definitely a part of the imagination or the way that each of them sort of like retreated into their imaginations where that was a tool to survive, but also I don't know, there's something both really human and really tragic about that, you know what I mean? But then there's a touch of hope in it as well. So I like kind of the fact that you can kind of read that in like multiple ways because like, it's very human, I suppose, to kind of like yeah, create a kind of a life that you're not living, I suppose,
Yeah, no, I definitely like I think you certainly balance the both kind of like the horror of having to retreat entirely. I think like there's some parts of it where it feels very claustrophobic and it feels like you can sense people's minds unraveling. But there's other like I thought like I think yeah, that shows so much humanity and kind of like the way the human spirit can survive in the most inhospitable situations. I think like there's a like they find a way to live and a way to exist, and there's is a lot of hope in that, but it does also portray like the absolute psychological horror of what people are going through. When you were interviewing different people, both like the subjects that you ended up with, but you said you interviewed a few other people, was there much variation in their stories? Because I know like this is three different prisons. Your subjects were in three different prisons, in three different states. I'm pretty sure. So did you find like much difference between the different states in regards to like how solitary confinement or like what the conditions were like?
Yeah, well, like what I do know actually from some of the interviews that I did that they're like solitary can look different in different states, different prisons, you know what I mean? And I suppose solitary confinement means different things as well, because I think there's various types of settings like administrative segregation, which is someone who might be willingly and want to go into that kind of solitary confinement. Whereas most of the people I spoke to, and certainly the three people in the film, that's solitary confinement used as a form of punishment to take them out of the general population. So yeah, there definitely is like differences. So I know that like from prison to prison, state to state, there's differences in kind of rules around, say, like 23 hours and you get an hour, in shower or rec time or something like that. And I think there's differences there, but I mean, what was kind of interesting was that, and all the people I spoke to, all their stories were obviously completely unique, but it was kind of interesting the similarities, I suppose, with people's experiences psychologically with solitary.
Yeah, all the subjects have like such like different stories in the way that they kind of like how they retreat into themselves, but it's all you can see the humanity, like there's a lot of humanity given to like, and I think like I can't think of a much more dehumanizing treatment than just putting somebody in a box and
Yeah.
forgetting about them for 22 hours a day. I think like it's really beautiful how much humanity you paint your subjects with. Is there anything like with regards to this film, like you've been talking to people and you've been on the festival circuit, is there anything that you've been really excited to talk about but you haven't gotten a chance to yet?
No, it's been really nice to like see the film get out there and really kind of resonate with people. And it's been really nice to know that Frank and Kiana are like, yeah, kind of really following it along and kind of happy to see that it's kind of reaching audiences. But no, they're like, yeah, I mean, I think like it's kind of funny being in the situation for me because it's like I kind of feel like they should be the ones talking, and that's a big, they're both in the US at the moment, so or they're both still in the US, or they are in the US, so it's like hard to facilitate. But I kind of, all I can be is like a spokesman for the film itself. I'm obviously I'm a filmmaker, so I'm not really speaking about the issue per se, but yeah, no, it's just been a really positive experience. And but of course, obviously, very sadly, Sonny passed away this summer. So just was yeah, really kind of happy and lucky that I got to like share a tiny bit of her story as well. That she gave me the opportunity to do that. And yeah, that's kind of
No, yeah, it's pretty sad. I was reading about Sunny. Very
yeah.
sad. And it's good to hear that like she was involved the whole process, that she did get to see a good amount of the film and be involved in it so much. What are your next plans? What's next for you?
Yeah, basically I've been writing I have a bunch of screenplays in development, so features, so that's kind of dominating my time at the moment. So it is nice to actually get opportunities to talk about this project, and this has been on the festival circuit for like 2 years now. So but yeah, so basically my focus is I'm developing a number of feature screenplays, and yeah, and kind of looking towards kind of new projects. I think I've been doing shorts for many years now, and I'm definitely, like still open to making the occasional short, but I'm kind of focusing on longer form now.
And you want to move on. You've done your shorts and you're ready for something longer.
Well, I love shorts in themselves. I think they're an amazing medium in and of themselves, It's like, and sometimes I think shorts are actually the perfect medium for certain types of stories, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think at the moment definitely just looking to kind of start developing longer stuff. So
I think you did a great job with your short. I think you really did everything you set out to achieve, and I'm very excited to see your features as they develop. Thank you so much for sitting down and having a chat.
no, thanks so much. This is great. I really appreciate getting an opportunity to chat to you, and yeah, thanks for sharing the film.
Thanks so much, Hayley and Nathan, and best of luck. And thank you so much for listening. So make sure to subscribe to Film Ireland wherever you get your podcasts, and get your ticket for Horseshoe on the big screen while you still can.